You're taking a look at beautiful Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the site of Division I College Nationals. We got men's pool play action for you between NC State Alpha and the Washington Sun Dodgers. Theo Want here with Keith Rayner. Keith, how you feeling as we get Nationals started?
I'm thrilled, Theo, to be here in Milwaukee. We have an excellent field, both in the men's and women's divisions here for the Division I College Championships. What's exciting about this field is there's a lot of teams that feel like they can win it, and I think I would put both of these two teams in that category. NC State and Washington both feel like they could leave this tournament as the title winners.
We have NC State there in red, pulling to Washington in the dark jerseys here. And as we take a look at NC State, Keith, any players to watch for as the audience takes note?
NC State, we're talking about their defense right now, so I want to draw attention to Sahas Mataraju. He is a dogged handler cover for this team. Is he going to be getting the most touches of any player? Probably not, because he's on the D-line. But when the D-line does get the disc, he'll also be a key part of their ability to generate breaks, and they're going to need his handler defense against a really tall and effective handler group from this Washington team.
And as we look at Washington's offensive line and this pull gets started, who do we need to look out for the Sun Dodgers?
A number of different players on this Washington team, but you see the disc center to Manny Eckert. This is the name to know. He is the trigger man for this offense.
Veneri and Brown going deep right away for Washington. Two defenders in the area, and coming down with it is NC State. That's Sean Wiles.
Wiles, another playmaking defender for NC State, able to get over the head of Brown, and already we can see the impact of the wind on the flight of the disc.
And as that throw sails too far for Alpha there, I was told by their coach, Michael Lee, he's their best defender, and you see why right there. Washington now here on offense. Their second opportunity on this first offensive point. Swinging to the far side to Manny Eckert.
Poachy look on the part of the NC State defense as they're looking to clog up the space a little bit, and it works, generating another turnover.
Throw sails to the ground here. We'll see what NC State decides to do on offense here. Mataraju to pick up for Alpha in the end zone vertical stack look. Far side now. NC State looking very patient here in this end zone set.
Getting the disc in great field position, second chance of the point. You don't want to waste it. You don't have to rush. And they're falling into that triangle that everybody's coming to know and love. The front of the stack and the other handler working together with the player with the disc to try and work that disc into the red zone.
Wiles had the block earlier, and he throws the assist. John Laney with the score, and NC State gets the first break of the game, going up 1-0.
Just the way you want to start it if you're Alpha, opening up the game with a break. And I don't even know, Theo, who I might say is favored in this game. There are those that would say the Washington side should be the favorite despite being the 14th seed. They've lost one game this entire season. But this NC State team has shown they can compete with top-level teams. They took UNC to the break at regionals. This has been a team that we've seen consistently be one of the top 10, 15 teams in the country. They're hoping to achieve more. This is the first step in that journey. You come out, you land a break on a very strong team in Washington. That's going to build your confidence.
Absolutely, and if you're Washington right now, Keith, I see a lot of the same O-line players back on. They are ready to go for the second offensive point here, and as you mentioned, only dropping one game all season. That's definitely got to build up your confidence. I know Northwest Regional's not the smoothest path for them having to go through that backdoor bracket, but they made it out, and they're here at Nationals.
Both these teams finishing second in their region, but Washington probably pretty disappointed to do so. They take an early loss in pool play to Oregon State and end up going through the backdoor bracket. They have to claw back against UBC, a team I don't think many people would have picked to beat that Washington team. And while they did, they certainly put a scare into Washington. So it has not been smooth sailing for Washington as of late. They've really struggled with injuries. This is a team that hasn't gotten to build up their cohesion quite yet. So very curious what we're going to see out of them this weekend. How will they respond to giving up a tournament opening break?
And we're taking a look at the Washington offensive line once again. NC State coming on a zone look as the disc working back and forth between Dean and Sam Cook.
A lot of names to know on this Washington team, so we'll be talking about a number of different contributors. Gabe Port now getting it over to Dean.
Chacker and Brown with a great grab as Washington move it smoothly through this zone look from Alpha. Back to Eckert in the middle of the field.
Sun-Dodgers doing a great job making sure that they have an easy target at all times. That optionality is really difficult for even a strong zone defense to defend, especially as they approach the end zone, as this one has.
Yeah, just continuing to move it side to side here and making that Alpha Cup move a little bit more as Eckert really quarterbacking things for the Sun-Dodgers. Right on the doorstep. And they're still in that zone look, Keith.
Difficult. You do have a much smaller space to defend, but every throw becomes so valuable. Any one of them could be the one, even a 2-3 yard throw could be the throw that ends it.
Veneri putting up a blade, looking back and it's knocked down. And NC State grabs another block.
That's Trevor Lynch on the block, the first team All-American on this NC State roster, coming over to play defense now and making an impact.
Faking the huck was Hawkins. Hawkins and Lynch, two people we'll definitely be talking about throughout this game, Keith.
Absolutely, especially if NC State's playing well.
And just a stone cold drop in the field there for Mataraju. And that gives Washington reprieve for now. Eckert looking for Cook, and he'll reel it in for the score. So Washington staves off another break opportunity, gets their first hold of the game, trying to ease into things here.
Mataraju frustrated with himself after that error. Just a simple look upfield before the disc was secured. But what I liked from Washington was the instinct to attack, particularly in transition. You don't want to let the other defense set up, let them get their plan enacted. You want to put the pressure on them to rush, to overcommit to things, to try and slow you down. And there, that Washington offense going quickly to get in the end zone.
As we take on the replay there, take a look at Trevor Lynch's block. We're going to see him back out there on offense, and NC State's offensive line out there, their first look, Keith. And I know you highlighted some players to watch defensively, but who can we keep an eye out on here on offense?
Three players on this NC State O-line are going to be the linchpins, as you'd say. One of them being Trevor Lynch. But Daniel Ferreter and Dylan Hawkins are really the players I think who are going to be getting a lot of the touches for them. Zach Cools is a player who also can make a big impact. They like to attack through a couple of different methods, but I really think you're going to see the disc focused on Lynch, and you're going to see Washington's defensive attention focused there as well. Tony Veneri and Jack Brown both staying on for this D-line point. Veneri is a reputable defender, but started this game playing both O-line points for Washington to mixed results.
We'll see what NC State does with this brick pull here, getting in the middle of the field, and what kind of defensive look Washington comes out in.
We get the matchup that I think you want. Veneri against Lynch. We'll see how effective Veneri and his Washington teammates are at limiting a star like Lynch.
Hawkins to tap the disc in as they poach the lane here, and NC State identifies. Hawkins in the backfield. They're really poaching that lane here, Keith, and trying to take away some of that shot down the middle of the field as they get to the far side.
Certainly the Washington defense wants to make this a longer point. They don't want to let this be a quick score.
Out of bounds ruled by the observer there.
Although I'm sure they'll take a quick score of their own if they can get one.
Now their defensive line attacks right away. Chacker and Brown, can he get there just off the fingertips? Great layout attempt. They've had a couple deep shots to him, unable to complete it so far, but we expect him to reel some in throughout this game.
Nothing subtle about the Washington attack right now. Veneri is looking deep, and Jack Brown is on the other end of it. He's a phenomenal athlete, one of the most explosive cutters you're going to find in the division. I do think they're going to keep taking their shots with him and trust that he's going to make a play.
especially in that short field space where you can now play defense once again here. See if they can generate another block, low throw, and as I say that, Washington, another break opportunity, just inches away from the end zone here. They find a Washington player who spikes it for the score, and the Sun Dodgers get the break back. Keith, they gotta be pumped up.
Absolutely, and the momentum has shifted quickly, right, Theo? NC State starts with a break. It feels like, hey, we're off exactly the way we want to begin this game. And now the shoe's on the other foot. It's Washington responding with the break, and NC State who's going to have to show some resilience in the face of an obstacle. But right now it feels like both teams want to be on defense. I do think part of that's been the win. You're going to see teams have to take some time to adjust. It's also the first half of the first round of Nationals. I think it tends to have poor offensive play as teams get their feet underneath them. But right now, the defense is really dominating.
The wind definitely playing a factor here in this one, and you can probably hear it on our mics a little bit there in the audience as teams try to settle into this wind. Veneri is out there again for Washington. Isaac Woldemarian scoring his first goal, the freshman from Seattle. You got to feel good if you're a freshman playing Nationals here, getting on the board right away. That's exciting.
Well, you love to catch a break. You love to be the one to spark the run for your team. That's the beauty of being on defense, right? You are in control of the runs. Offenses can't go on runs.
They just keep you in games there, Keith.
So Veneri staying on for, as you mentioned, his fourth straight point to start this game.
Similar offensive line here for NC State Alpha. The heavy hitters Keith mentioned before out there on the field. Center to Hawkins.
Washington really focused on making sure that NC State can't initiate with deep looks.
William gets it back to Farrer, and they swing it to the other side of the field to Sean Wiles, who made the big block earlier in the contest. Lynch finds his teammate Brennan Cramling for the score, and NC State gets the hold they wanted, showing that they have the ability to take on some resolve here, at least early in the contest.
Strong play on the part of Trevor Lynch. Obviously a great athlete. I think people will note his ability to make big plays, that kind of stuff that shows up on highlight reels, but there it's his decisiveness that really makes an impact. Gets the disc, immediately identifies a target. On that kind of situation, with the wind blowing, with the mark coming on to try and cut you off, you've got to be able to make a decision quickly and execute effectively. Lynch able to do that in short order.
And now, it's early, of course, but pressure a little bit back on Washington to get their offensive line right, as they've had a couple of struggles here. Both teams getting broken, so we know it's going to be defense is the calling card of this game.
No shortage of turnovers thus far. Some under pressure, some unforced. Both teams try to contend with the breeze, which is blowing to the right part of our screen. So right now it'll be NC State who's working upwind, while the Washington offense will be working with the wind at their backs.
You just got a great look as well of the NC State offensive line regrouping, talking about what went well, maybe what they can continue to improve on throughout this game, as the disc now with Eckert. Washington working left to right on your screen.
Jack Brown springing deep again, and Veneri has no qualms about putting it up.
Third time's the charm there for Jack Brown going deep. He reels in the score, and now teams, maybe I don't want to jinx it here, Keith, but settling into a flow, smooth holds for both squads.
The MO is clear, especially for that duo. I mean, that is the third or fourth huck we've seen come out of Veneri, the first one that he's managed to complete, and the third attempt to Jack Brown.
Sailing over the head of the NC State defender for the score. Jack Brown's got to feel good. You've gone deep a couple times, able to reel in the score and get a smooth hold for your team. As it's 3-2 right now, early in this first pool play game. Lots of action still to come here. Ulti-World's coverage. Keith, that's got to be exciting. So many games today. Also some filmed on tape delay as well for Ulti-World subscribers.
We are either streaming or filming 4 games around. I mean, this unprecedented level of coverage here. in Milwaukee, every team will be either filmed or streamed. I mean, I don't think that's ever happened before.
That's record-setting, trailblazing stuff there, Keith. We got to give a shout-out to all the producers making that happen, all the people behind the scenes that you can't see right now, working the camera work, too. You got to give some love for that.
And shout out to you at home for supporting us, but especially if you're one of our subscribers. We could not in any way, shape, or form be able to send all the equipment for 2 live streams and 2 films without your support. If you want to see how you can help us bring this type of coverage to Ultimate, ultraworld.com/subscribe.
Fair, they're going to tap it on the sideline here for NC State Alpha. Working with Wiles. Farrer looking deep as well for Trevor Lynch. He goes up with the left hand for the grab, flips it for the score. And NC State feeling some rhythm right now. Cooper Williams reels it in off the flip from Trevor Lynch.
I have no idea what celebration's taking place at midfield, but it is sparked by another big play from Trevor Lynch. We saw him use the skill before. Now we'll see him use the athleticism. And, hey, the first point Tony Veneri takes off, and the Washington defense looks helpless against Lynch. I don't know if it's going to be a theme, but I don't think Veneri can play every point.
Well, that's the thing, Keith. I know they only played 2 games today, but you got to keep the legs fresh throughout the weekend, and that's maybe something they're being mindful of, but you're right. He was able to get free there and kind of just go untouched for the score.
But that isn't the only difference in the defense, just the personnel. That was the most honest, just matchup defense that we've seen on the part of the Sun Dodgers thus far. They came out pretty much squared 1-to-1 and a little less focused on taking away the deep look. NC State taking advantage right away, activating Lynch deep, and taking advantage for the score.
And you mentioned the celebrations. That's something I always look forward to, especially at the Division I College Championships, Keith. So we'll keep an eye out for more, we'll say wacky or inspired celebrations.
Who doesn't love a good celly? As long as it's focused on your team and not the other team, we're all for it.
No, we do love it. We hear the Washington sideline getting the offensive line pumped up and ready to go here for this offensive point.
I think that's a marker for these early tournament teams that are going to play well. Who can stay energetic? Who can manufacture the energy when you don't have a lot of momentum to work from?
Veneri is bursting deep here. They don't hit him.
It came late, but a nice switch on the part of NC State defense to try and contain that. But now they're in a bit of a recovery mode.
Brown fakes deep and gets it easy under there.
They know Brown's been looking to get towards the end zone. He takes advantage for the under.
Veneri comes back for the reset. Fakes it to the far side, then hits Brown now in the middle of the field. Veneri driving this offense so far on this point. And now the grad transfer from USC, Sam Cook, fitting it to Brown. Going crossfield to Eckert, and he'll slide in for the catch. And he'll spike it in celebration. Maybe not as creative as NC State, but that gets them fired up either way.
You got to put the pants to good use with a nice knee slide there on the part of Eckert, looking like a rock star with the long hair and the slide into that one. But I think one of the things you see on that offensive point from the Sun Dodgers is one of their strengths as an offense is the versatility of their personnel. Jack Brown's been sprinting deep the whole game. That time he spends a lot of the game behind the game behind the disc. You end up with Eckert as the target downfield, typically a handler. They're going to be comfortable with players shifting positions. Makes them a lot more difficult to match up with. You can't really send your specialists in there and expect that to just be enough.
We'll see also, we're looking at the Washington roster and seeing a couple people out and some depth and also some big pieces for them not in the lineup as of right now. So we'll see how that plays out throughout this game.
That's been an unfortunate theme of the season for the Sun Dodgers, and part of what's led to the inconsistency that we've seen from them. You know, they finished their conference championships with like 10 players left. So they've had very limited practice time as a full team. They don't even get to play a ton of sevens, which is remarkable for a team of this caliber. I think that that's something that'll be a real challenge for them. How will the chemistry build, especially for a team that's added in some new pieces? But we aren't seeing Stan Birdsong for this team today. Asaf Golan, who was a Rookie of the Year last year, he's not playing with them, among others. So there are a number of different players that we may see in and out of the lineup based on their health status. But I think you can expect Washington to be a little shorthanded, and that's going to be an obstacle for them to overcome.
And as you mentioned, shorthanded, we see Jack Brown crossing over to defensive line, Tony Veneri as well. So they're going to work some of those offensive players. Off on the sideline here, Von Alten swinging it over to Ferreter, getting it all the way to the far side. Blake Stratton. Working it smoothly right now is Alpha. Trying to get another smooth hold here. And they do just that as observers signal the goal. NC State feeling good right now on offense.
Well executed offensive point on the part of Alpha there, despite the fact that Lynch was mostly kept out of the play by Veneri. And I think that's important for NC State to show that they can work without Lynch's help. He's going to be a strong enough player to be involved in most points, but being able to work without him, especially if he needs to take a break, I think that's going to be key for this team to be successful at the level that they're going to need to be.
That's a great point, Keith. And as we look at NC State's defensive line, we're seeing a lot of the standout defensive players out there for them and not really as much crossover. And do you wonder if that's going to take place later on in the game, or they're going to run more strict O&D lines out here?
Personnel decisions are unique to the different teams. I mean, we're seeing two different approaches between these two teams. It's tricky at Nationals. You do only have 2 games per day, and usually they're pretty spread out. But the games are played at an extremely high level of intensity. So they can feel a lot like the 4 games or 3 games that you might play during a regular season tournament, lower intensity reps, but more frequent. So figuring out how to deploy your players, what is healthy for your team is one of the strategies, but these are 2 seasoned teams. These are teams that have seen Nationals plenty of times. They're going to have an approach that they're going to work with. So I think NC State is probably showing us a little bit of what we can expect to see for them throughout the rest of this event.
And Keith, as you mentioned, both teams playing later. They both play at 12:30. NC State having to play Colorado. So they got 2 tough matchups here on Friday to start off their championship.
Many people are tabbing this as the pool of death. NC State, Colorado, Washington, Minnesota, and Washington University in St. Louis in this pool. And certainly tough customers up and down that line.
Yeah, you see Washington at the seed that they're at, and many would say that they shouldn't be deserving of that seed, and we'll see if they live up to that here today.
Well, this year we've reverted back to the seeding rule where teams have to be seated behind teams that they placed behind at regionals. So Washington stuck with a 14th seed behind Northwest champion Utah State, and an incredible catch from Jack Brown.
Brown sandwiched with 2 defenders and puts them on his back, reeling it in, and he is definitely fired up talking to his teammates. You can see the passion right there from Jack Brown.
Sun Dodgers get jacked up right now by Jack Brown. Another deep shot from Veneri. I mean, these two, they're laying it out here. We're looking to go deep. We're going to take our shots. Veneri is an aggressive thrower, and you can see why he's tempted to put up these throws to a player like Jack Brown.
McAllister in the area, couldn't get there. We get a second look here from another camera angle. Brown boxing out and reeling it in with the right hand, going up strong.
Help defense not offering a lot of assistance there. And you might need 2 to cover Jack Brown in the air.
And we saw it on an earlier point there, Keith, where he really took some steps deep, and his defender was totally taking that away. So maybe they continue to work him underneath and get someone else like Manny Eckert we saw earlier with the baseball sliding catch downfield.
Well, we are going to have to see some adjustments from NC State to take away the deep game for Washington. There's just no way they're going to be successful in this game if they're going to continue to give up quality deep shots. Although, Veneri missed on his first couple. But that's the nature of the hockey game. You don't have to hit above 50% for the hockey game to be effective for your team.
And it opens up so many options for you as well, as We see NC State Alpha out there again on offense, and no Veneri on this point, so taking a rest.
And a bit more of a junky, poachy set on the part of Washington this time, not wanting to give up a quick deep strike.
Cramling now guard on that backhand sideline. Working free is Hawkins. And it's ruled out of bounds by the closest observer, so Washington gets a break opportunity that we haven't seen in a while from both teams.
A completely uncovered Washington cutter.
Johnson reeled in the grab, and now the defensive line moving here. Not a lot of offensive crossover, so we'll see how this D-line can work it up here on offense. Will DeMariam, who caught the first break for Washington, goes up the line. Now looking for options here is Jordan Smith. Smith goes inside, great layout save there from the Sun Dodgers. Hearn looking for options, and Tang just unaware of the NC State defender coming right by, and Williams is gonna get the block.
Tang knows he let that one get away from him, didn't attack the disc with any sense of urgency. Alpha able to break the play up.
Lynch has someone going deep. That's Von Alton, and he'll run it down for the score. So if you're Washington, that's got to be a backbreaker. You had it on defensive line, with your defensive line offense, I should say, in the NC State red zone, can't convert.
Tough pill to swallow for the Washington coaching staff, giving up that one. Poor execution in the red zone. NC State makes a pay, and NC State on that second possession, able to spring free for the deep cut when Washington wasn't able to get their poachy set back on. I don't know if that's something that we're going to see continue to play out, but when Washington's been in this more even-footed matchup defense, NC State's been able to get free deep, and they're taking those opportunities and punching them in.
That's the key to the game right now. There were a lot of break opportunities earlier, but the last few points, at least, Keith, they've been few and far between, so you got to take advantage. I'm going to get you to put your coaching hat on. I know you do a little coaching here. You moonlight as a coach as well as being a commentator out here, Keith. So would you have liked to see a timeout from the coach there, or just let them play through?
Hard to know that you are going to see that kind of error on the part of Washington. If the offense is moving okay, I think you probably can let things flow. In general, stoppages are to the advantage of the defense. Yep. You know, being able to set up is a big advantage for the defense. So I don't know if I necessarily need a timeout there. If you see the offense is starting to have a little trouble, there's not a fluidity, you're seeing the spacing give you a problem, then yeah, go ahead, take your timeout, make sure you set something good up. But they seem like they were in the set that they wanted to be in. Worth noting, I think that's 3 assists for Lynch thus far for NC State.
Almost a poach block there, but Washington able to save it. Looking for Eckert in the backfield. Guarded tightly there by Hawkins. Great matchup as Veneri, he's here on offense. You said he's a defensive player, but playing a lot of offensive points and laying out a backhand out there. There is a call on the field, though, that may negate the score.
Unclear, not seeing hand signals yet to know what the stoppage has been caused by. And that's because it wasn't. No stoppage, so we'll get a goal. Another long shot from Veneri. This one of the more mid-range variety, but just past midfield. Veneri puts it into the end zone, remaining aggressive, continuing to put his mark on this game.
So if you're marking up against Veneri at this point, if you're NC State, are you giving multiple defenders looks? Are you changing the force, putting a flat mark? What are you trying to do to stop kind of what Washington's MO has been, at least so far in this contest?
There's a couple different approaches you can take. You can try and stop at the point of attack, but one of the things that makes Veneri effective is he's a hard runner. He's a guy with a motor, and that's how he gets free to try and send these deep shots. He's going to challenge you that way. So I actually think it's easier to try and be reactive downfield. If you see Veneri setting up underneath, you have to recognize a deep shot's probably coming. How can I position myself? When do we need to send help into that deep space? Try to take away those options for Veneri because it's difficult at the point of attack to stop him just one-on-one.
And he's showing why that he's number 13 in Ultiworld's player rankings here for college, along with Manny Ecker, who's number 17. So I know, Keith, you had a hand in sort of voting, right? Is that correct? So
I did submit a ballot.
So are you able to say where you put those two players?
Both of those players.
There you go. So both players in the top 20 of the power rankings of players, at least. And that's exciting for both of them to receive those accolades as NC State back here on offense. Ferreter throwing the flick out here.
And again, we're getting Veneri and Lynch. Lynch able to dance free, but too late in the stall count to be an optimal target.
Hawkins going down the line for Lynch, and a little too far there. Thought maybe he could consider a bid from Lynch, but it sails too far out of the reach.
Veneri giving up on that pretty much right away, perhaps recognizing that a throw to the break side was not going to be likely for him to make a play on it, but maybe he's showing signs of fatigue. I mean, he's played, what, 9 of the 11 points we've seen thus far?
Just go over to Ting here, who had the turnover earlier that Washington had an opportunity to get a break, and they have another one here as Veneri now on the field playing defense. You know he's going to cross over both ways, and a drop in the middle of the field there from Sorendal is going to give the disc back to Alpha.
Got to respond here after that mistake.
Williams looking deep here. And another throw that sails too far. Hitting the fence even. And Veneri high-fives someone in the crowd and brings the disc back up. Washington another break opportunity.
Despite the downwind conditions, I think that's probably the first overthrow deep shot we've seen going that way. So Washington back with the disc. Veneri takes a timeout on his own goal line.
Veneri right now padding the stat sheet here for Washington, a goal and 3 assists. We know he has the 2 turnovers right now, but you're going to take that with the high volume usage you're going to get out of Tony Veneri.
It's clear they're comfortable with him taking the risks, with him being the shot taker on this squad. It helps to be a great defender. It gives you a little more freedom on offense because you can be confident that he's going to get it back. But they're asking a lot of him. I mean, he's driving offense, and he's been one of their key defenders.
As we take look at some of the highlights here from Tony Veneri, who's been, as I mentioned, a big part of this offense so far. That's the first point for their first break, I should say, for Washington. Here's a deep shot where Jack Brown puts someone on a poster right there. Let me get a second look at that play. You mentioned there before, Keith, the help not being of help. And we'll see if that adjusts later as more Veneri highlights. Scissoring out a backhand.
One thing that this Washington team has is a lot of high-level experience. They have a number of players who've played in the ADL or do now, or have played at the elite club level, including both Brown and Veneri, who played with Seattle Sockeye. Veneri, a highly touted recruit coming out of Nathan Hale, and has been a key member of the Sun Dodgers since joining the team.
And speaking of Veneri, he's going to scuba out and get the offense started for this defensive line here. Looking more smooth as they lay out a throw. And there's a foul call here from Ferreter, and that's going to bring the disc back, or at least generate a discussion.
Yeah, Ferreter clearly motioning for a push-off on the part of the offense. I believe that's Ollie Hearn, who's the subject of discussion with Ferreter.
Can you explain what's happening here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm calling a foul. I thought it was a push-off.
A push-off, okay.
Yeah. What if I contest it, it goes to you? What happens either way?
So that's 2 different things. If you contest, it'll just go back ruling. That can either be a contest if I didn't see it, or I'd rule one way or the other.
Okay. If you rule against me, is it returned?
If I rule against you, no, because the disc was not in the air. It'll go back and the stall will go up by 1.
I'm gonna go to you.
You're gonna go to me?
It was a foul.
All right, really quick, I'm going to make sure that we've got the same view. Just verifying. So my ruling here is neither of us actually had a view of it, so we're going to treat it as a contested foul. We're going to send it right back to the thrower, and let's go back to where the contact occurred.
So Washington now getting the disc back. Dahl, another one of these Seattle products. We're looking down, up and down this list, Keith, and you see Seattle, Washington everywhere. So homegrown program here for the Sun Dodgers, as Dahl going to be marked up by Hawkins.
Fertile recruiting ground, you could say, in Seattle. And also Washington has these tremendous grad programs, so they pick up a lot of graduate students, including Justin Ting. We see in the backfield with Veneri now.
Trying to work up that break side here, and Veneri gets the reset, and they swing it around and get the break. So Washington feeling good right now. Veneri powering this D-line offense.
It has been all Tony Veneri in this first half for Washington. He has been a steady presence, not just literally being on the field, but being very involved for Washington. For a team this deep, I'm surprised at how much they've turned to Veneri as the key point.
Washington definitely fired up here, and we'll see how NC State responds as we get a look at Tony Veneri once again in the Washington huddle here. Looks like a timeout has been called as both teams huddling up here. And teams getting water as they get ready for this next point. 7-5 the score here, and Keith, we saw some breaks earlier, and now Washington getting one, but there was smooth offense, and NC State was able to do a lot of good things. So what do they need to get back to here as they try to restore some order for their offensive line?
They've got to be able to push the pace. I mean, what they've done well is find some flow where they don't have to wait very long with the disc, access the break side. Those are things that their offense has done well when they're scoring. They've let a couple of errors get in their way. But if Washington's going to be difficult, Washington's not going to let that flow come easily. NC State's going to have to fight for it.
You mentioned also earlier when they play kind of that generic vanilla person defense that NC State has been able to be successful. So that's something we're definitely going to keep note of as Washington tries to apply pressure here and take half on NC State, the 7th seed in this tournament, the 2nd seed in their pool. So this could be quite the shock to the system here for NC State. The pool of death dubbed by many, and we're seeing it play out right now here on this field.
If there was a pool that people would have expected to go awry, it would have been this one. A lot of people feel like this Washington team is underseeded, and it's hard to argue with them if you just look at the resume. If you take away the regional lock rule for seeding, there's just no way this team would be a traditional 14th seed. So a tough draw for NC State to have to face them early on, but they're in this game. A hold here is going to make it a 1-point deficit.
And it looks like an offside was called as Washington moving back towards the line here. And I stand corrected as NC State going to walk it up here. Going to actually figure out what the call was as NC State going to take in their brick mark. It looked like Washington players were moving backwards, but offense is now starting
here. There may have been an offsides, but NC State perhaps declining to take it. Declined to maintain possession.
And just too far away here, and we see Eckert, Veneri, and Brown out on this defensive point, along with one of the players you mentioned before, Justin Ting. So they're really trying to power up this defensive line and take half here. Veneri has a teammate deep, shoots it out for him. And the question is, was that down?
Color me shocked, Theo. Tony Veneri hucked it again. Who could have foreseen such an outcome?
Yeah, it's not it's the first time he's done it, right? This game is what you're saying here, Keith. Of course, throwing some sarcasm here for the audience as we listen into this discussion, possible down call.
possession. We're going to rule this one down. Hold on, we're going to resume with a check. Yeah, so we'll check the disc in as soon as you're ready.
End ruling is a turnover on the part of Washington, and from my vantage point, that seems to be the right call. Not able to stop rotation on the disc before they got to the ground. And a sigh of relief for NC State fans everywhere.
Williams on this close sideline, resetting things here, finding Wiles. Alpha's offense trying to have a smoother offensive point here and getting in the way and getting the block. Washington feeling good, but there is a foul called. 2 defenders in the area there. Michael Boyko being one of them.
Was what I felt.
Okay. Like, so I was in the position first? Does that make sense?
We were next to each other, and I felt you reached and got my arm before you got this.
Okay,
Okay, you want to come to me? Okay, so my ruling is that you got the disc and that there was not contact before that, so it is no foul.
Okay.
We're going to come in here with the check. So wait, let's come in with the check here. It's going to be, you can tap the ground and then we'll be live.
Okay, ready?
So this call goes in Washington's favor. Lynch unable to get that foul call resolved for him. I do think there was contact on the play, as the observer acknowledged, but say that the block was achieved before the contact, so it had no outcome.
Veneri hammering, looking for Brown for half. And Wiles gets in there again, his second block of the game. Prevents Washington from taking half and the break, and hopefully stymieing, at least if you're an NC State fan, some momentum for the Sun Dodgers.
In American football, there's an advanced analytic called air yards. How many yards has a player attempted to throw for, even if they weren't completed? Tony Veneri must have a massive lead in air yards in this game.
You're saying that's not something we can calculate right now, Keith, on our broadcast?
We probably could off the film if we go back, but we're not there yet at Ultimate.
Not live, but we got lots of coverage for you, as you mentioned. 4 cameras filming 4 games around. That is insane, and we're really excited for you to join us for that. As Alpha now, an opportunity, and Veneri sneaks in for the block, but it looks like it will be a strip call.
Looks like no contest on the part of Veneri on this one. Unfortunate for Washington fans. I mean, this is a line that they stacked a little bit, and you really want to walk away with the break. So they still have the opportunity to do that, but giving this offense a 3rd chance, and now their furthest advancement is their pass midfield, not ideal.
Lynch finds Hawkins. You know those two are going to work a lot if NC State's going to continue to ascend in this game and take the victory here. Lynch on the far side now. And not seeing much downfield. Those look a little clumpy, a little crowded, and they're going to call a timeout.
Well, this is exactly the scenario we were talking about earlier when we talked about Washington potentially taking a red zone timeout. Are you feeling in the rhythm? Now, you can, from a player standpoint, players are going to know pretty well, but like you mentioned, spacing not quite feeling right. Didn't feel like the offense had a lot of momentum, so a reasonable place to take a timeout, especially considering that the offense has had a couple of struggles. I'll be curious to see how this changes matchups. Veneri was not on Lynch at that moment. Boyko was. I don't recall if that had been the case all point, but this time they'll have a chance to reset those matchups.
We get to take a look here at the NC State huddle as teams trying to regroup here. And we just want to let you know this broadcast is brought to you by our friends at A Glimmering Wreck Ultimate Apparel. This year, they're getting even more reckless by offering $22 full sub tanks for Wildwood this year. Great jerseys, can't be beat for that price for a full sub. Go over to agwultimate.com and ask about the special. They've got jerseys, shorts, sun hoodies, all that great stuff. As always, just say no to Big Ultimate. As we get back into the action here, Wiles looking up the line for Fariner. And as you mentioned, NC State having multiple opportunities on offense. Ferreter spikes it for the score. They're fired up, trying to get back into this game, and they'll do so with the hold after multiple opportunities. And a shout out to his favorite coach there, Bailey Liberto, getting some love on the broadcast as NC State brings the deficit down to 1.
And I know we've been talking about Veneri's aggressiveness deep, and I think his teammates are perhaps a little bit frustrated after the number of turnovers. I mean, that was a chance for this team to take half with a 3-goal lead, a break into half, and it was a bit squandered by Veneri's throwing choices. So the sword cuts both ways, you know, for Veneri. And NC State able to get a reprieve, able to get a hold, and so after all of those opportunities, it's still just a 1-point game. NC State with a break, and we've seen plenty of opportunities for both sides, could change the complexion of this first half.
Now you're going to see multiple players having played that defensive point. It was a longer one. There was a timeout in between, Keith, but the same suspects out there again, like Brown and Veneri and Eckert. So we'll see if that fatigue plays a role into this game especially, and then also further on into this tournament.
Wiles and Mataraju also both staying on after crossing over to the O-line. You don't see a lot of teams that cross D-line players over to O-line, but NC State choosing to do so. So there's quite a bit of personnel staying the same from last point to this one.
Lynch's pole sailing out of bounds here, and Washington will take it at the brick mark and trying to get that smooth hold. And, you know, I'm going to just foster a prediction here that the disc is going to go deep early on this point, Keith.
I wonder who might be considering making that throw.
Dean fakes the huck and is going to find Veneri underneath, and someone was poached off of Brown, and he's going to lay it out. Brown goes up too early, but someone else scoops it up for the score, and the Sun Dodgers get out of jail, as they say, and get the hold. It looked like Wiles was there. We're going to have to take a look again because that was an amazing play there. Kevin Tejas with the grab.
That's a way to take half. And that play sparked by a gamble on the part of Trevor Lynch. Peels off his matchup on defense to try and get the poach block, and he did so in a way that I don't think his teammates expected. I don't think that was a clearly communicated switch or anything, and that frees up the deep look. Now, that may have not ended up impacting the quality of that play because it didn't even go to the guy that they were targeting. Instead, it's Tejas who comes in with the second ever catch.
It did look there that Brown went up very, very early. Wiles got there, but it's Tejas who comes down with it. And now we take a look at the NC State huddle. They're trying to figure out here, what can we do better and advance here in the second half. Lots of action here from this first contest, and it's been an exciting one, Keith, and we know there's going to be more action to come. Once again, thank you for joining us for Ultiworld's coverage here. Keith's already given this pitch. I'll give it once again. Help Ultiworld with the coverage. Going to ultiworld.com/subscribe and support what's going on here at this championship. The score is 8-6 here. Washington with the advantage. NC State looking for answers. We'll see what happens there in the second half.
Plenty of deep strikes. But Washington working on an upset with that 8-6 lead at the break.
What would it look like if a competitive sport didn't mean a choice between beauty and brutality, style and steel, between calling yourself out and clawing to stay in? What if there was a game that found balance? Between spirit and sport, agony and elation, like a disc dancing on air.
We now have evolved into a team sport of a game called Ultimate.
It stands by itself in that it is like no other game.
Between perfect passes and devastating drops. Like the balance we so desperately needed, we had no choice but to create it ourselves. Long live grit and grace. Long live Ultimate.
There is a place where we are us at our best.
A place where everyone is welcome.
Regardless of age, shape, skin color, or anything else that tries to box people in.
A place where we defy the odds, defy the naysayers,
and even defy gravity.
A place where it's accepted that success
doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave, to the determined.
A place that knows grit, knows grace, knows bright lights, and knows empty bleachers.
A place where we remember to laugh.
Where we learn to trust.
Learn to high-five strangers.
And eventually, even learn to fly.
A place where character, community, and competition
are all as balanced as a disc in flight.
That place isn't in a stadium or on a field.
That place is in the spirit of our players.
Because we don't just play Ultimate, we live Ultimate.
Here with Tony Veneri. Tony, quite a first half. Tell me a little bit about your takeaways.
Yeah, we're kind of just playing our ball, I feel like, and just shooting it when we need and playing under when we can.
Now, shooting it when you need, it looks like you're thinking you might need to do that a lot. You had a lot of shots this first half. It looked like on that last one you'd almost decided to throw it before you even caught the disc. Is that true? How do you feel about that first half from a shooting perspective?
Yeah, I think we're just taking shots. I think our regional fields were a bit smaller, so we're like trying to get used to this bigger field. But yeah.
Does it feel fast, given this is the turf field?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Environment's definitely different. Climate's different. I don't know. It's just...
It's far away from home, but you guys are in control here. Well, good luck in this second half, and we'll look forward to seeing some more shooting.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Bye.
We're live back. Second half action between Washington Sun Dodgers and NC State Alpha. Theo Wan here with Keith Rayner. Keith, I know it goes without saying that was an exciting first half. A lot of deep shots. That was the name of the game. Maybe someone's just coming into this game right now. What has been happening so far?
Well, like you mentioned, it's been aggressive deep, and both teams have had some O-line turnovers. There have been break chances, as we see here, but only 3 breaks in that first half. So conversion percentages have not been high for either side. I've been surprised, Theo, that we've seen the teams go away from some of the poaching and zone looks we saw them starting out with earlier in the first half. I would not be surprised to see them revert to those, to try and go back to that, try and change up the pace a little bit. Because right now it's hard to say exactly who this pace favors, but the scoreboard says Washington. I would say Washington is probably the more athletic team, and so playing this high pace, this high octane, is probably going to be something they're comfortable with. I do think NC State has some versatility on that front, and we'll see if they make some adjustments to try and make this game go a little bit more in their direction.
We dubbed this the pool of death earlier, Keith, and now we get a look at all the pools here, and anything, I know it's 0-0. It's the first round. So I could easily say what sticks out to you, but in terms of the pools, what else can we be looking out for here in the men's division?
There's plenty to look at, and of course, a lot of attention is going to be drawn to Pool D. 4-5-9 is always going to make for an exciting group. I mean, three of those teams, people could feel like could reach semifinals with Pittsburgh, Georgia, and Michigan at the top of the pool. Michigan and Georgia both achieving that feat in 2021. Pittsburgh, an ignominious performance at that tournament. However, they're a top seed now. They've had a great season. So a lot to like. Michigan, I'm sure, looking for revenge after getting knocked out by Georgia in fairly embarrassing fashion on the big national stage in 2021.
And we're taking a look at some of the upcoming schedule here. Like we mentioned, games all over. We're going to look at what games are happening on Field 6 here and some women's action. UNC Pleiades, Stanford Superfly there at 10:30 a.m. Central. This is all local time here. And we got some more action. Michigan Magnum, Auburn, as well as Carleton Syzygy and UBC Thunderbirds, which I, for one, am very excited for. That's a 1-versus-2 matchup in the pool. And then ending up with Pittsburgh and another, I'm going to say another exciting matchup against Georgia. That is, you mentioned that pool earlier. We got Pittsburgh, Michigan tomorrow. That pool as well. Maybe that's a little mini pool of death along with this one.
It's funny, we sit down and we talk about which games we're going to stream in the offices of Ultiworld. And when we have this many streams, it's odd to be like, oh, we're going to film multiple games from this pool. We're going to film teams multiple times. We're so used to being like, okay, this is our one shot to put this team on the live stream or on camera in one of our film games. But now every team's getting filmed. We got some teams getting filmed 2-3 times. Who knows what will happen in the bracket? There's a lot of cameras to be pointed at these teams, which is exciting for the viewers at home.
Exciting for the viewers, and I think exciting for the teams too, because maybe they get that extra little scouting advantage at the hotel or wherever they're staying. Get a look at some teams here as they prepare for the next day.
Our own boss man Charlie Eisner has talked about a future in which we have additional streams that don't have commentators, maybe don't have all the dressings, but are more like our filmed games, but live streamed as well. So we can imagine a future where there are even more live streams, but also every game has a camera on it.
That is a wonderful world that we'd be living in, Keith, and I for one, hope to see that one day. Von Alten had a player going deep, looks him off, and Fairder instead finds that teammate in the end zone. Zach Cools, the junior from Charlotte, North Carolina, gets NC State on the board here in the second half. A smooth hold, not much resistance from the Sun Dodgers.
Now, Fairder is a player I think could easily go overlooked or underappreciated by the casual fan, we'll say. But he gets a lot done in his ability to get the disc to the break side. It's not always the fancy stuff, but Fairder is the one getting the disc moving, getting his players into positions where they could do damage. A lot of times you'll probably see him getting what is commonly referred to as the hockey assist, that throw before the assist, although that time put it in the end zone himself.
Keith, before we continue, I'm just going to give you a shout out for bringing all these other sport references into the mix here. So you got the football, you got hockey. I'm ready for some baseball or basketball references as well.
Hey, we are right in the midst of the NBA postseason, the NHL postseason, WNBA's in their regular season, Major League Baseball is going on. There's a lot to go on, so fortunately you're getting to put all that stuff down to watch Ultimate all day, and then in the evening you can watch those other sports.
Yeah, especially on the East Coast, you're kind of in the middle of your workday. West Coast, you're waking up, and you get to watch some Ultimate and kind of start your day right. So that is some exciting stuff. Washington here on offense. That same UW cheer coming out as they're trying to get their team fired up.
You might be watching this at work, but the NC State defense are going to go to work on this point. And there's work to be done.
Acker looking deep. And batted into the other field here for NC State Alpha. Robert McAllister maybe wanting to buy his D-line some more time here and just knocks it straight out the end zone.
The delay of game T. You can't do that, sir. But that's the best deep defense we've seen since the early Sean Wildsky for NC State. They're a team effort, winning the battle for position, and making sure that the offense can't even make a play. You're not going to make a sky if we just have two bodies in front of you.
Motoraju, will he be quarterbacking this offense here for NC State as they get this disc now to this close sideline? Laney. Now to the far side. They're going to go back to this near sideline here, just working laterally, but hopefully maybe for some more downfield yards here over to Wiles. Fakes the backhand, but Veneri takes it away.
Washington doing a lot of poaching, trying to get the lanes, and that's giving up these big cross-field throws, but Sun-Dodgers content to give that kind of horizontal movement up.
Wiles identifies the poach, and NC State on the go here. Motoraju cleans up the garbage that was intended for somebody else. NC State trying to tie things up here with a break of their own. Wiles under duress from Brown, but a foul will be called, and you can see on the mannerisms from Brown that it's going to be uncontested as Wiles going for that end zone catch.
You can go ahead. Yep. And hey, real quick, we're going to give, was it you that made that play?
What happened?
Was it you that made the bid? I missed you, mate. It was over there? Okay, so we're going to do a yellow card for a dangerous play. Just for a danger, or whoever made the bid. I don't know who did the bid.
I don't think so.
Oh, here we go.
I don't think he needs to yell for that.
Okay. So I felt that it was a dangerous play, so that's the card. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right, so the disc goes to NC State right here. All right.
Interesting interaction here. As this is a bit surprising to me. I do kind of agree with NC State. Jack Brown pulling up as NC State gets into the end zone with an upline for Motoraju for the break. But Brown, I think, trying to make the safe play by pulling up there, and NC State agreeing despite the card from the observer. NC State imploring the observer to not pull the card on the opponent. So an unusual moment. You don't see a lot of that kind of stuff, but it does look to me like Brown trying to avoid a potential dangerous contact. Observer disagrees.
Definitely saw him pull up there, and lost in the midst of that discussion, Keith, now is NC State getting that break, throwing things back on to serve here, feeling good right now. We'll see what players, personnel come on. I know Trevor Lynch has come on multiple defensive points. Will we see him out there? I believe I see Hawkins out there on the line right now for them.
I think that's one of the things to be excited about for NC State fans about that score is they did it without really any of their crossover players. There was a pure D-line group going out, doing the work like we just talked about, generating the turnovers. That was one of their best defensive plays at stopping that huck, and then they're able to march the disc the other way. That's got to get you fired up.
Washington with their, I'm going to say, standard O-line, a lot of the same pieces out there. And also want to give some kudos there for the spirit as well, as NC State was rescinding that call. You do like to see that, especially when you know all these games are going to be hotly contested. The players showing the spirit, what makes Ultimate so special.
I do believe players are able to overturn calls to their own detriment, but I don't know if the card system is included in that. So I think the card probably stands, but certainly an unusual interaction.
Veneri, haven't seen him shoot it too much, and we hear the shooter calls here. They know his MO. Scoobers out to Dean. Boyko poached underneath and gets some free yards there. Needing a reset, high stall count for Washington. Slices inside flick out there.
NC State's defense has applied some great pressure on this point, but they seem like they might be starting to wear down a little bit.
Veneri now going to lay it out. Knocked away, but Eckert gets there for the score. So you hear the old adage, Keith, catch your blocks, catch your Ds, and you see why right there. So if you're a young Ultimate player, you know now.
Yeah, NC State, last time they were like, oh, we're just going to back it past the fence. There's no chance you're going to get a second effort here. This time they back it in bounds. And that's a recipe for disaster. no amount of shooter call is able to stop them from again giving up another hug to Veneri. Although, hey, we're gonna go back to football again for this one. Another cross-sport reference. Turnover-worthy plays, another kind of advanced analytic coined by Pro Football Focus, who does NFL advanced analytics, and it's something that I'd love to bring to Ultimate. Even though that's a completion, that's an assist. I don't think there's anybody who would say that throw probably doesn't deserve to be a turnover, right? That is a turnover-worthy throw, but it'll go on the score sheet as a goal, and Washington's happy to have it, however it came. But you got to imagine that, again, the coaching staff saying, hey, Tony, that process is not necessarily optimal for us.
Keith, all I have to say is I really like the analytics. You really need to consider working for an analytics department somewhere in Ultimate or another sport because you're all about it. And I know that's infiltrated a lot of sports, and as you mentioned, I would love to see that in our game because I think that would just help the quality of play, the quality of game planning and matchups as well.
Well, we actually have a series on Ultiworld, our Edge series, that has taken a deeper dive into advanced analytics using stats from NAUDL primarily, but also the Western Ultimate League and a couple of other environments. So we try to get a better understanding of how data can help us identify what's working and what isn't in Ultimate.
NC State moving it fast here as they reset themselves on offense. Washington did come out in a zone look and now have settled into person defense here. Dix now with Lynch. If NC State's going to get going, it's going to be on the back of number 21, number 18. Both playing pitch and catch there.
Heavy inside lane attack for NC State right now.
Farrader finds Hawkins, who sneaks free. And NC State gets the smooth hold they want. It's tied at 9s. Just under 25 minutes to the soft cap. What else could you want on this Friday morning, Keith?
And NC State looking cool in the second half. They have found a much better rhythm for their offense, and that's part of what's helping them get these smooth holds. We talked about there was no shortage of break opportunities available to both sides in the first half, 7 each way. But so far the offenses have been much stronger in this second half, particularly on Alpha side.
And this tight contest, the scoreline being the way it is, I think that's what I expected, Keith, and I believe that's what you probably did as well. These two teams being tightly matched up, let's say.
And we've talked about how dangerous this pool is. There are 4, and if you like WashU, even 5 teams that could be making it to the bracket out of this pool. That is too many. There are only 3 slots, so somebody's getting left out. And it really could come down to point differential with the parity potentially in this pool. Every point matters, and every win clearly matters a ton. So both of these teams are going to want the win, but it could come down to even tiebreakers. So these teams have to be careful in how they approach these close games.
Nothing like a three-way tie between the 3 teams, and that point differential being the reason why you get the free pass to quarters or not.
If somebody at home wants to track down the data, or someone on our staff, I'd love to see how many different 3-way ties have we had for spots in the bracket in the Division I of College Ultimate. Love to know the history on that, but I'm willing to bet there'll be at least one here in 2022.
And getting that spot, as you mentioned, that first spot in the pool is really critical because you get that bye, don't have to play that last game tomorrow. As they're Washington able to thread it through the zone here. Moving it down with Dean and Boyko.
And we said that NC State hasn't run a lot of zones in the second half since early in the game. And I think that's in part because Washington has a very strong zone offense, but their offense really seems to be Tony Veneri Huckett. And again, it happens. And it's had mixed results.
You live by the Veneri and you're dying by the Veneri right now if you're Washington, at least on the last few particular plays here. We'll see if they kind of change up some things on offense. Wiles with a long shot and just too far. Got a couple passionate NC State fans in the audience trying to will their team to victory here.
So the team's exchanging Huck turnovers, giving each side a full field to have to work against. Again, Washington working upwind, and NC State able to reset back into their zone look, their poachy look.
That had some effect, but then, Keith, on that last offensive possession, Washington able to kind of move it, I would say, a little bit smoother than maybe in previous points, and so we'll see how long this stays on here. I know that vanilla matchup defense isn't really going to work here on Washington, especially with the shooters they have.
And I like mixing it up. Make the offense think about what you're going to be throwing at them. What the offense is thinking, they're usually not playing as well.
Dean doing a lot of work here, getting give and goes on this point, or this possession. Eckert hammering out. Trying to free them out of trouble here.
Eckert's had a pretty quiet game thus far.
Veneri gonna launch it again. And really in for the score are the Sun Dodgers. So I said you live and you die by it, and they're living right now for the 10-9 lead.
I know it feels like we're harping on it, but how often have you seen a game where one player throws basically every huck for his team? I mean, it is a trend that won't go away, and Veneri just has not seen a throw he doesn't like.
That is very true, Keith, and 6 assists will tell that tale.
For a player who's known for his defense, for him to be piling up these kinds of offensive numbers is impressive. I mean, you just don't think of him as a high-volume thrower, but 6 assists, 3 turnovers, you've seen a little bit of both things from him thus far in the game. But the other thing is, the coaches keep putting him out there. I mean, he is having a positive impact, or else he wouldn't stay on the field so much. He's played at least 3/4 of the point of this game.
For sure, and we got to look there at D.Y. Chen, the coach, and Stan Birdsong, who is not in the lineup for today. Obviously a big loss for them, but they're looking like they're looking for other players to step up, and here we go. So now NC State back on offense, Keith. What do you want to see from them on this point in particular?
Well, they have been really keeping the disc moving effectively in this second half. Been able to get that flow going where they don't have to wait very long with the disc in their hands. We'll see if we see some adjustments from Washington to try and slow that movement down.
Pull sails out of bounds, so NC State going to be able to take it out of static here, and we'll get a look and feel of what Washington wants to do here on defense. See a potential poach in the lane already here to start. They did this earlier as well, taking that open side handler there. Lynch makes the grab, throwing it out now, and sneaking in for the block. Washington able to get it back and trying to get that 2-point advantage now.
Nice help from Dahl to get there. Lynch with an incredible save, and that gives it away. But first throw turnover from the Washington D-line. Great field position opportunity for NC State.
It's got to hurt, especially when, on this point specifically, not a lot of the offensive line crossover, so you're relying on that D-line depth to get it done, and that first throw turnover definitely hurts you. Looks like maybe a self-travel call there, as we're looking to get things started again here with Zach Cools.
Just do a check and make sure that they're good behind you. Song 2.
Cools checks it in and uses all that leg to get the throw around, and we see it again. Another deflection caught for a score. It's one aside in that scoring category. This time it's NC State that benefits.
So Keith, is that an analytic that we have, batted discs? Is that something we're going to add there into the statistical category?
Is that if you want to go to baseball? I know you asked me for more sports. How about BABIP? You know, batting average on balls in play. How about catching average on discs in play? Pretty high right now. These deflected discs are often going back to the offense. But I know there's the old adage of catcher blocks, and I think players should try to do that. But getting your hand on the disc at all is better than not impacting the play. So if you can't catch your block, you might as well at least make them get a second effort catch at it. Give your defense a chance to get a second effort block. So I think it's good process to know, hey, our defenders are getting in to break up these plays. But you also, in these windy conditions, you want to follow the play. You got to recognize that deflections are going to happen. And that these break opportunities, these second chance opportunities are going to be available if you're hustling, if you're following the play. That's how you create your own luck. Some of these may feel like lucky plays. Oh, they got it'll be fun to watch to see who steps up for this team over the course of the tournament. So, you know, Eckert, like we said, has not been as involved as you might think. Nice job defensively by Washington, or by NC State, excuse me. So it's kind of all thrust upon these other players to be more involved in the offense.
The aforementioned Port now had Brown going deep, elects not to send it there. Now Eckert, we've mentioned his name, but not really on the assist goal sheet there. It's been Veneri mostly. As a pick called there, and offense looking a little static here for Washington, or not getting that kind of movement we've seen earlier.
I think there's an injury call for NC State.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, okay. All right. Yeah, no, so we're going to come back to where whatever it was happened. So
grad student Chris Nelson checking off here, and look who you get in his stead.
So I need you to
in the star Trevor Lynch.
Yeah, wherever it was that the positioning was.
Probably not a bad trade if you're NC State.
All right. We good here then? All right, what do we got? 5? Okay, 5. Coming in on 5.
Monteraju guarding Chacker and Brown. Coming in on 5 and now finds Port in the reset space. Great bid effort. Got to get up, but looks like another call downfield here, stopping Washington's momentum.
I know we've talked so much about Veneri's deep game, but look at how patient the rest of this Washington offense is. It almost makes me wonder if they're like trying to counteract Veneri's throwing aggressiveness, because they've been really content to keep the disc working side to side, to take the reset options, including for losses of yard.
And as you say that, Veneri's going to find Brown, who beats Trevor Lynch to the deep spot. But there is a travel called. And we'll see what gets resolved here.
I will say that Veneri has some very unusual footwork on some of his deep throws. Almost kind of sweeping foot motion, like a bowling motion.
Okay, anyone want a ruling?
See for yourself.
Okay, the ruling is the pivot foot did move. It is a travel. We're going to bring this one back.
It's hard to argue that his foot did not leave its spot before the throw went up. That's the kind of thing that you might identify on the sideline or even on tape and know coming into the game, hey, this is a player who has this mechanical
okay, we're good at 2. Song 2.
Something to keep an eye out for.
That's where watching that Ulti-World film is going to come in handy.
Well, I'll tell you what, if people didn't notice it, they noticed it now. So Veneri might have to be on alert for the rest of the tournament.
Fakes the hammer, instead goes with the flick that floats, and coming down with it is Kevin Tellez, going vertical right now. And that gets the audience fired up, gets Pat Stegemiller fired up, who's around us. And Washington is feeling it right now. That was insane there, Keith.
Another leaping grab for Tellez in the end zone, showing off the springs. And this time, Veneri taking another shot, but this one's a high stall look. So that aggressiveness perhaps a little more contextualized. Honestly, like, maybe if you ask Veneri, like, how come you being so aggressive? Maybe the answer is, look who I'm throwing to. Why would I want to put it up in the air?
Washington has 11 goals here, Keith. I'm going to let you guess how many goals Tony Veneri has been a part of in this contest so far.
I think, unfortunately, that I may not be guessing. He has 7 assists, and I don't think he has any goals. One goal. So 8 total. 8 of the 11 have been either from or into the hands of one Tony Veneri. And I know it sounds crazy, but he's even better at defense.
Would you say you're seeing this kind of offensive, I don't want to say renaissance, but this offense because of the fact that they're missing some of these other pieces that they want in their lineup?
Potentially. It's hard to say. I mean, I struggle to recall. Can you think of another Washington player who's thrown a huck in this game?
I haven't seen Echo do much of that, as you mentioned.
I don't. Maybe it's the wind. Maybe he's the one who feels the most comfortable hucking in the wind. But whatever it is, I mean, it has been unrelenting during this game.
I know for the audience, it sounds like Keith and I are almost like broken records talking about it, but that is the storyline of this game, quite honestly, is the deep game from Washington. NC State now coming out here. Had a bit of a rest, and Hawkins faking the huck. Settles for Ferreter instead. And Ferreter, you mentioned a lot of the hockey assists. He's been a solid linchpin for their offense in the handler space, just keeping them moving.
Lynch getting his first touch of the point and immediately sends one to Cools. Cools is going to be one of the favorite deep targets, and with all that size, you can see why. I want to say that's his third trip to the end zone this game, and another flowing offensive point for NC State. That O-line has got things going in this second half, but they're going to need the D-line to come out and get them the break if they want to win this one.
Yeah, D-lines were the name of the game earlier, Keith, and now when one team wants to rise up and be victorious, it's got to be one of these D-lines stepping up. Of course, we're going to expect to see some offensive line crossover within that defensive line call.
Even going upwind, though, Lynch gets his first touch and it immediately goes to the end zone. Again, you can see his impact too. So this has been a game where the Stars have had a big part in the story. 4 assists for Lynch. He's trying to get into that Tony Veneri territory, and now going to be on defensive line with Dylan Hawkins, that combo. Motoraju as well out there. Wiles, who kind of started things off with a bang, getting that first block. We'll see what NC State can do here. Time running down into the soft cap. So teams got to make a run. It's got to be now. I think that's why you're seeing the Alpha coaching staff stack this line, recognizing that there's not going to be a lot of chances left, and they have to get a break.
Michael Lee moonlighting as water carrier and coach there for NC State Alpha. Love to see the coaches delivering for their players.
He has been a huge part of building this program to where it is, and remaining a part of that as part of the coaching staff now after having been a player in his previous years.
And Keith, I for one, we talk about the production, loving the drone shot there, seeing what would be like over top of the skies here in Milwaukee. That's a great look.
Well, it shows us a rare vertical stack. We've not seen much of that today, but it immediately disintegrates as Washington splits.
Batted up, and Hawkins going to be credited with the block. And there's the break. Short field turnover. Jacob Levine with the great spike. And NC State Alpha takes the lead.
You may credit Hawkins with the block, but it's clear from the bookend signals going up from NC State. They're going to credit Levine with that block, and well earned as he's able to jump in on this one, knock it away. Hawkins collects a crucial collection, given that probably would have been right into the hands of a Washington handler had Hawkins not picked it up. And then he immediately finds Levine for the quick score. NC State suddenly flipping this game on its head.
Now I'm thinking another stack could be added here, the second block, because first he hit it, of course, and then Hawkins able to grab it. So more stats being added here analytics-wise for us in the booth. You're witnessing some good stuff here. But now, let's get back into game action, Keith. You're Washington, you're DY Chen, you're the coaching staff. What are you saying to the group right now? Soft cap is looming, but I don't think they're feeling that pressure yet, or right now.
You really just want to focus on your process at this point. You know, just saying like, hey, here's how we run our offense. I'm focusing on the nuts and the bolts, not really talking about worrying about that score. All you can do right now is go out and do your job and do it effectively. They know they have to create some space. You know, they were playing in a bit of a clumped up situation there. That's how they ended up giving up that disc. They need to generate a little more room. Maybe they're not going to be happy with how that vertical stack was run, because it certainly didn't do much to give them freedom to roam in the way that we've seen them do so well at other points of this game.
Instead, they come out in more of a side stack look. Brown churning yards underneath, but they finally do get it to him here. Working with Manny Eckert. Eckert gonna feather out a flick, finds Port who cuts it off. Might have been intended for someone else. And now Port looking off his dump, finds Dean, tiptoes for the score. Washington does what they need to get the hold, and now the pressure back on Alpha's offense.
That was kind of the first flash of what we usually expect to see from Eckert. You know, getting the disc back, he loves to give it go. He can be one of those every other type of handlers at points, but we've seen very little of that from him this game. And there, gets 2 touches consecutively, and then puts it to the end zone, and ends up with the hockey assist. We talked about earlier, he hits Jasper Dean there. Jasper Dean, one of our breakout players of the year 2021, has also had a bit of a quiet game. It's hard on a team with so many different pieces, and also with one player eating up so much of the offensive production to kind of get your name on the stat sheet. But Dean fits into that Eckert mold of a really tall, lengthy handler who can use that to great effect. Also a lefty, and I think you see how that impacts their ability to play zone offense with all these tall handlers. So we are coming down the stretch for the clutch moments of this game. A lot on the line for these two teams in the pool of death, as many are calling it.
You want to escape a 3-way tie, get that first W and make things a little bit easier for yourself potentially.
Oh, it must feel so much more comfortable to look at the standings and see 1-0 next to your name instead of 0-1.
Dis with Hawkins here, under 4 minutes to the soft cap for those keeping track at home. Veneri, don't know if he came up with the block itself, but lays out and draws the turnover. And he's gonna send it out. Ferreter knocks it down. Great help defense from Ferreter. Heads up from the handler.
I don't know if there was ever a talk of an adjustment, but there hasn't been one. It is still, Tony looked deep. But when he can generate blocks for you like that, it makes it a lot easier to tolerate those kind of turnovers.
And drop now for Alpha, and Washington gonna take advantage. See if they can go out and running here, putting Alpha on their heels.
This is where the Sundowners have been so effective in the few opportunities they've got it. When they're able to transition quickly into offense, NC State has had little answers.
Lay knocking on the door, and there it is! Washington gets the break. Element, the women's team on the sideline cheering them on, and that's a quick change of momentum. We saw NC State take the lead, Washington reversing the fortunes here.
I don't know if I can keep up, Theo. The swings in this one are starting to stagger me, and I'll be curious how the teams respond, because there is an emotional roller coaster for these sides right now.
You can imagine for the players and the fans watching at home as well. It's just that ping pong of emotion. You take the lead, and now you've lost it. So now your NC State, your offensive line, going to come back out there. Going to check to see if a timeout has been called, as Washington's team has huddled up.
It is, in fact, a timeout for Washington, who I guess said this. Can we take a little break for the roller coaster? I need a little relief.
Washington up 13-12 here. And we're going to get ready for the conclusion of this first game of college nationals, live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Ultiworld's live streaming coverage of the college championships is presented in part by AGW Ultimate, who wants to remind you to say no to Big Ultimate. You can find them at agwultimate.com.
You're watching Ultiworld's coverage of the Division I College Championship. We got men's division action for you. Washington Sun Dodgers up 13-12 on NC State Alpha. Theo Wan, Keith Rayner on the call. We're in Milwaukee. We're excited. NC State now, their offense. What are we looking for here as they try to get things done here as soft cap is now in place?
Again, for them, I think it's been about keeping the disc moving. If we see it sit in anyone's hands into the 7-8 second range, you need to start being worried about their offense, because when it's been effective, it's been getting in and out of their hands within those first 3 to 4 seconds.
Mataraju has played a lot of defense, but now, and some offense, and we're seeing him out there and throw too far for a while, so it's going to be batted down by Brown.
Veneri has not stopped moving despite the change in possession. I talked about his motor earlier, and you see it on display.
Eckert has time, and maybe too much time, and just a little too far there. NC State gets a reprieve for now.
And Cook trying to swing that wide, and just the wind maybe taking a little bit of that away.
What a play there from Tony Veneri. The flying block. He's going to put it out. And that's a break for Washington. 14-12 the score. Tony Veneri with, I would say, Keith, the play of the game. That is an insane block. Puts it out to Martin Lay, and Washington up 14-12. Wow.
Hey, I tried to tell you, the guy's a better defender than he is offensive player. And there you see it come up with a incredible block, and well-timed, I should say, late in this game, and potentially putting a dagger in NC State.
The true dagger, of course, will be the 15th point. That's what we're playing to here. Tony Veneri, 8 assists, a goal, 4 turns, but you're going to take that with the high volume usage as we've been talking about throughout this broadcast.
What a performance for the Washington Star. You know, for a team that's missing players to be able to turn to somebody else and be like, no, you carry the heavy load this week. I mean, that's big. I wonder if this is the year, I think, when people could walk away saying, hey, this is one of the best players in College Ultimate. There's a long weekend ahead, but it's a great start for Veneri, who's been so involved throughout this one. No shortage of stars on this Washington Element team, the women's division counterpart to the Sun Dodgers here, rooting them on, but with title aspirations of their own after a loss in the final last season.
Keith, that's what I will say is something I love about College Ultimate is the camaraderie between the two programs, the men's and women's teams getting excited for each other, making sure they know where the game is and cheering them on.
NC State could use a little support of their own, having given up these late breaks. Briefly, they seized control of this game. They get the break to take advantage. And immediately, Washington surges back in front and now has NC State's backs up against the wall.
If you're NC State right now, you can't do the reflection that Keith and I are doing on your previous plays. You just got to go out and get a smooth hold here. Shorter pull here, starting around half field for NC State. Flip pass over to Lynch. Going a little give and go here as Mataraju, maybe they're just pushing the downfield players away here as it's been Hawkins, Lynch, and Mataraju. And Lynch is going to get the score, and that's what you drew up if you're an NC State Alpha fan in the crowd. It's 14-13. Now your D-line has got to make some moves.
A dominator look for NC State, and I love that call right here. It's not something we've really seen them operate with for a full field. They also get a great field position, a midfield pull to do it with, but it's a great way to settle your offense down, to say, hey, here are 3 of our best players. Let's put the rock in their hands and let them guide us to a score. Sometimes, you know, in basketball they talk about, you know, you just got to see one shot go in. Sometimes your O-line just needs that one bucket to start to feel that confidence rise back on them. But really, what they need is to get this O-line off the field because the defense has to do the work from here. Although, I imagine we'll see plenty of similar personnel across those 2 groupings.
We're getting a look at Trevor Lynch, who has 4 assists. That's the same amount of sport references that Keith has put out on this broadcast. Mixing it up here as now Michael Lee talking to the team. Hawkins, Lynch, Wiles. You knew those 3 would be out there for this point.
Absolutely. NC State's going to turn to their most accomplished players in these moments. A lot of the players that I think would be easy to predict to be out there right now.
Levine had we'll say the block. He batted it to Hawkins and then got the score. We'll see if he can repeat that magic again as he's also out there on defensive line. But if you're the Sun Dodgers, a hold does it and sends you to 1-0 here in Pool B.
Lynch taking the Brown matchup, trying to stop him from getting free deep.
Eckert gets it over to Veneri. Great attempt there for Mataraju, but comes up unsuccessful. Dean gets Brown in the underneath space. Brown goes around, and there is a call there from Wiles. Wiles, a big height advantage on Veneri. See what Veneri can do, especially with his throws with the long mark.
Okay. Yeah. It's between you 2. Okay. Go ahead.
Pick call. So Disco will go back to Brown. Trapped on the sideline with Lynch on the mark.
Brown with a vision and trailing edge catch from Eckert. Doorstep here for Washington of a win. And there it is. Jasper Dean collects the score, and Washington takes the first game of Nationals in their pool, 15-13. That was a great game to start us off, Keith.
14 seed over 7 seed, but it certainly doesn't feel like a massive upset given the talent and the season that this Washington team has had. Able to get a win with a tremendous performance from Tony Veneri, but they close it out with just a measured, balanced offensive play, just walking it up using the unders and resets. So showing that we've got some other tools in the toolkit here. Don't think that we're a one-trick pony. I'll tell you what they are. They're 1-0 going into the next round in this hyper-competitive Pool B.
And if you're NC State Alpha, you don't really get a break here, Keith. You do in terms of a bye. But then at 12:30, you got to play the second-seeded Colorado, first seed in the pool. That's going to be a great matchup as well. But they're feeling it a little bit, having to take on Mama Bird at that juncture.
Yeah, Colorado also 1-0 after a pretty sizable win over Wash U, the 5 seed in the pool. So NC State could be facing an 0-2 hole if they're not able to play better against Colorado. They cannot let somebody take over the game like Tony Veneri did during this one. Veneri just launching huck after huck, a barrage from the noted D-line star. He came out on the offense, and there's not a shot he didn't like. And yeah, do they always go to the intended target? No. But hey, when you've got great athletic cutters like this Washington team does, Kevin Tejas, Jack Brown coming up with some big plays, then you have room for error. So that's part of the calculus. And I'll tell you what, the math adds up to a big number for Tony Veneri on the stat sheet.
Keith, we're going to wrap up this game, get things set up for the next one as well, but give us your final thoughts here. I'm just trying to catch my breath from that one. There was just so much back and forth action. NC State had it, but Washington able to take it from the potential jaws of defeat here, and they take it 15-13.
It's hard to say that this isn't a continuation of a trend of what we've seen for NC State. They have gotten close, but can't quite get there so many times. And this is going to be another one of those games they feel like they gave away. Washington's a great team. Washington certainly earned it, but NC State's going to feel like we could have won this if we had played a little bit better. So some things to clean up, but it's just the beginning of a long weekend. Nobody wins a national title in the first game.
Washington takes it 15-13. For Keith, I'm Theo Wan. Thank you to the Ulti World production crew for making this happen. We'll see you for the next game.